My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all, welcome to my February check-in. Before we start, does anyone remember these earrings that I rented from Rent the Runway last year when I had a 1-month subscription? Joe bought them for me for my birthday. Can you even? I'm wearing them for strength. I know you can't really see them underneath my hair. Worry not, I'm sure that I'll wear them in a future video with my hair up so you can see them better. I'll probably be wearing them all the time because I love them so much. This is my February check-in. It's the video in which I talk about how it went to be on a budget in the preceding month and also how it went in terms of my striving for fewer, nicer things and my year of less stuff. February was a mess in a lot of ways. This is not really the check-in that I expected to be giving, but I have a lot of interesting things to say and I have a lot of notes. Let's just go ahead and get right into the meat of the video. I feel like that was the shortest intro I've ever filmed, and I'm feeling pretty pleased with myself right now about that. Also, I stumbled over my words at the end right before I transitioned to the meat of the video, and I didn't refilm it, so you guys are going to get the true uncut version where I was like, let's go, blah, 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 blah. Progress, you guys. This is progress. So the first thing I have to say, the first thing on my notes is that again, I feel like I've been saying this in every video, but I think it's good to say it in the check-in because there are some of you who only watch my check-ins. I just know that from the numbers. So some of you might actually not have heard me say this, even though I feel like I've been saying it in every video. I am just on like a reduced schedule for YouTube. So right now I'm still committed to my Sundays and my Wednesdays. I've never missed a Sunday or a Wednesday upload, I think, since the beginning of my channel. I think I can uphold that going forward, but the bonus day, which used to be Friday, is now all over the place. I just put up bonus videos whenever I can, if I can film them. And it's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. And also former promises, like I'm gonna film XYZ video at this time, or I promise I'll get back to this and that. I just can't right now, you guys, but I'm very low. I'm at a very low level of functionality. Like I'm imagining like a gas tank. Like the gas in my tank is very low. There are a lot of things going on that are not YouTube related behind the scenes that I'm having to deal with. And I just do not know what will be the best for me in terms of showing up and being here on YouTube. I've been going through one of those phases where I cannot fathom being viewed even by like 5,000 or 10,000 people. It's like just hard for my little brain to handle it right now. And I feel a little bit like crawling under a rock. I think that the best thing for me in terms of productivity on YouTube might be to just make some like straight up creative videos. So maybe I should do some more overhead shot videos, makeup demonstration videos. I know that not as many people watch those and the algorithm doesn't like them as much, but it might be the best thing for me right now just to like make some creative content about color and shape and technique. So you might see a lot of that in the coming weeks. It might be like the best that I can do to do that. So if you're one of those people who gets really disappointed when I don't show up consistently churning out like the deep digging content or like the super anti-consumerist content and all of this stuff, then you're going to be disappointed because I don't know how much of that I can keep up right now. This is one of those quarters, like this quarter of the year is one of those times in life when I just need a little reprieve from being expected to be like the best version of myself or the most advanced, groundbreaking version of myself in public. So fair warning, there might be less content and there also might be less intense or less sort of invigorating content. But I'm like letting it go. This is the other thing I wanted to say. I'm not going to say it again. This is it. Yeah, I've made the announcement enough times and this was like the fullest and most complete version of that announcement. I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. I'm just going to make the content that I want to make because I feel like that's the only way that I can make content. So going forward, I'm just going to make the content I want to make. If you're like, oh, I miss it when you used to do XYZ, this has now been my announcement that explains that. I'm just going to take care of myself and I'm going to make YouTube videos and we will reconnoiter in a couple of months when I'm feeling able to like dig deep again. I say that before, like right before launching into this video, which if I stick to my notes is going to dig pretty deep. And then my upcoming video about how I spent my budget is likely to be pretty beefy too. And I mean, who are we kidding? I'm never going to stop talking about my feelings on YouTube, right? I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. I feel the pressure of what I've done before, and I think the person that I have become in the eyes of many of you. I feel the pressure of that. And when I'm entering a phase of life, or I'm in the middle of a phase of life where I just know that I can't meet that bar that I've set for myself and that some of you have set for me because of my past actions, it drags me down. It makes me feel bad. And I do feel like I have to like come on here and explain myself to you, if only to remind some of you that life has ups and downs and that we people have ups and downs. I know that a lot of you totally understand that. And so when you see me saying things like this, you're like, you don't need to explain yourself to us, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't need to explain myself to you, but there are a lot of people out there who I do need to explain myself, to whom I do need to explain myself. There are a lot of people watching to whom I do need to make these explanations. So if I didn't need to make this explanation for you, that's amazing. We're more on the same page. But for me, because there are people out there who will attack me for going a couple of weeks making like shallow videos, I do need to explain myself. So that's about to happen. That's what's happening right now in my life. I have now announced it to everyone. Let's move on to the actual meat of this hella meaty video. Okay, here's what happened. I pretty much didn't buy anything for the first half of February. If you saw my check-in at the end of January, you will know that that was my goal. I was going to try to kind of go on a tacit no buy, but I didn't call it that. I decided to give myself the leeway to buy things if I truly wanted to, if stuff truly came up, because I want to flex my muscles of moderation this year instead of holding myself to really strict rule-based standards, because I know that I'm good at sticking to rules. I'm not good at moderating, as it turns out, and that has continued to become more and more clear over the course of the second half of February, because what happened was, in the second half of February, I bought a ton of stuff, and I spent a ton of money. And I will say, I spent a ton of money on a group of things that are really nice, that I very clear-headedly believe that I have room for in my life, and that I'm not sorry that I bought. And I'm kind of excited about my video about how I spent my budget in February, because I'm excited to share some of them with you. Once again, part of what has happened with my journey is that it's brought me to a place where I'm able to make really good decisions about the things that I bring into my life. And that remained true in February. I'm very pleased with everything that I now own as a result of February, but all of that specific information about those things will come in the next video. I hope it'll be the very next video, but it'll be one of my upcoming videos about how I spent my budget in February. So that's fine. I mean, that's kind of the good side, and I'll actually touch on that again later in this video. But the thing that I need to make very clear to you, and that's basically the premise of the self-examination of this video, which is like the rest of the video, is that I spent a huge chunk of my yearly budget in February. I spent much more of my yearly budget than I intended to spend in January, and then I spent even more of my yearly budget in February, the opposite of what I was planning to do. And at this point, I have something that is in some ways totally insane to report to you, which is that I have officially spent just over half of my yearly budget for beautiful things, and we're only 2 months into the year. So leading up to this video, I've been asking myself the obvious questions. Why did I do this? Like, why did this happen? Is it cause for alarm, or is it okay? I've been trying to articulate in my notes here what I've learned about myself in these first 2 months of this project, the first 2 months of this year, and how I can mobilize what I've learned, like put it to use in terms of like strategizing in the future about maintaining a balanced relationship with beautiful things and keeping my finances healthy. And crucially, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do in March? And what am I going to do for the rest of the year? Like I kind of need a strategy now for the rest of the year, because I really didn't expect this to happen. So when I realized that I was spending so much money right at the beginning of the year, at first I was inclined to feel alarmed. It was like my alarms started going off, my alarm flags started going up. But then just like, this all happened like just in the past couple of weeks, right? So when it first started happening, I first felt very alarmed. And then I really thought about it, and I stopped feeling alarmed really pretty quickly. When I really sat myself down and I was like, what's actually going on? Let's actually take a look at the plan. Let's take a look at how the plan is being enacted, like the plan for the year. I completely stopped feeling alarmed. And I want to talk you guys through that process right now, just in case some of you are feeling alarmed, because I have a feeling that there are going to be some people out there who are like, holy bananas, like still reeling from the fact that I just told you that I've already spent half of my budget. So I think that my alarm came from the fact that in terms of the dollar amounts that I was spending, like the amount I spent in January and then the amount that I saw myself spending in February, and in terms of the number, like the amount of stuff that I was taking on, which is quite a lot. Like more stuff came into my life, I think, in February than it did in January. I haven't totally tallied absolutely everything up yet, but I think I can say that with confidence. So in terms of like the financial implications and the amount of stuff, my behaviors in February were reminding me of my old behaviors. It was kind of like a reflection of the way that I used to behave before my no-buy year. When taking into consideration my economic status right now, so my income level, my job, my age, my savings account, my prospects for the future in terms of earning, just like what I'm doing with my life and all that it adds up to financially. When I take that into account, I spent an amount of money on beautiful things in January and in February that is totally inappropriate. That felt scary to me when I was doing it. And it should have felt scary. And it caused me to sit down and look at my budget for the year and look at my project and really think about it. And when I did that, I remembered that my budget is yearly. And my yearly budget does take my economic status into account. And the amount that I'm planning to spend over the course of the year on beautiful things is appropriate for me. And because I'm confident, and I am still confident, that I won't break my yearly budget, the repercussions of my January and my February spending aren't actually financial. All I've really done is to put myself in kind of a bind for the rest of the year, which perhaps isn't ideal, and it might make future Hannah kind of mad at past Hannah, because January, February Hannah really stole a lot of spending money back from like March, April, May, June, July Hannah. But sticking to my yearly budget means that I'm not actually stealing from my long-term future self. So if I proceeded to spend roughly $500 a month, as I did over January and February, if I proceeded to do that every month for the rest of the year, which is something that I can't afford to do, then 2021 and 2022 and 2023 Hannah would be suffering from the actions of 2020 Hannah. But that isn't going to happen. In spite of how I behaved in January and February, I know that that isn't going to happen. Essentially, even though I didn't quite plan this, I had a plan for this. There's a fail-safe in place. So on a financial level, it doesn't alarm me. On a behavioral level, it raises all sorts of questions, which I will answer in a little bit. That will be the brunt of the video. But before we get into that, I wanted to address a question that some of you might be having, which is, where did this money come from? Like, how was I even able to spend half of my yearly budget all at once? Because I essentially spent about $1,000 in January and February combined, and you guys know that I don't usually have that much extra money lying around to spend. The answer is that the stars just happened to align in January, and a bunch of my chickens came home to roost. My money chickens all came home to roost in January. So in December, I worked my face off on my YouTube channel. I posted almost every day in December, and you guys know this, I think, at this point, but AdSense money, so like the money that YouTube earns from advertisers for putting ads on videos, goes up in December because it's the holidays and more people are trying to place ads on YouTube videos. So the ad auctions, because it is an auction system for trying to like get your ad placed, the prices of the ads get driven up in those auctions. And because the price per view for advertisers was higher in December, that meant that my price per video, or my pay per video, was higher in December, my pay per click. And that meant that when my check came from my December work on YouTube, which came at the end of January, it was more than usual. It was higher than usual. And at the same time, as we got toward the end of 2019, I realized that I still needed to bill one of the nonprofits that I work with for some grant writing work I had done for them. And it was like several months of work grouped together that I had just simply, I had like been doing the work and I hadn't invoiced them yet. So at the end of December, I had done all of that work on YouTube and I invoiced this nonprofit for several months of work, and at the end of January I got the YouTube payment and I got paid by this nonprofit all at once. So I just had way more money in my checking account than I usually do. I felt richer than usual. And what I mean by saying that I felt richer than usual is that the fact that I got those 2 payments all at once, that is how I managed to spend half my yearly budget in just these 2 months. But it also might be why I let myself spend it. It was because I felt like I had more money than I usually do. Because I did, but that made me feel like more of a big spender than I really am. Of course, that feeling was a lie, because my income, just like my budget, is something that I should consider yearly. One of the things I liked about my strict month-to-month budget last year was that even when the stars aligned and I happened to make more money from my side hustles in 1 month than I usually do, my monthly budget stayed the same. So having more money come into my checking account never tricked me into feeling like I could afford to spend more of my budget at once than I actually could. No momentary influx of income changed my feelings about my ability to spend money on pretty things. It was just everything went straight into my savings account, except for the $200 that I kept in my checking account on top of food money for my budget that month. This time, though, with my more fluid rules, the influx of income in January tricked me into temporarily feeling richer than I am, to temporarily feeling like I have more of a budget than I do. It made me feel like I had my whole yearly budget to spend, which I theoretically did by my rules, but I also actually had it in my bank account. And I think that that made a difference in terms of my behavior. And it's fine temporarily. I mean, it's fine. I didn't spend over my budget. I only spent half of it. It's just that it means that I'm going to feel the actual reality of my economic status later in the year when I run out of my budget and I'm not allowed to buy anything, no matter how much money I happen to earn in any given month later in the year. So that, gosh, I feel like that was a really long segment, but I think it was because it was all about money and it's so stressful to talk about money on the internet. But that is why I'm not alarmed, financially especially, and then where the money came from, like how I was able to spend it. And now let's move on to talking about all my feelings about what happened in February. Okay, so the first thing I have under the heading all my feelings to talk about in my notes is this issue of moderation versus abstaining. And that is something that I've been thinking a lot about. So having spent so much, I'm forcing myself into another period of abstention. I basically have 2 choices right now. Choice number 1, I can stop shopping completely right now. And I can stop until I catch up with myself. So if I stop shopping until June or July, then when that time arrives, I'll have the right amount of budget for the rest of the year that will make it the rest of the year. I mean, you guys know what I'm saying. I've spent half my budget, so I need to stop shopping until halfway through the year, and then I'll be on track again. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is that I could just keep buying whatever I want until I completely run out of my entire budget for the year, and then I'll be on a strict no-buy for the rest of the year because I will literally have nothing left in my budget. That's also an option. Either way, this year has already been shaped as one of feast or famine with shopping. Without planning it, I essentially chose to have a shopping season followed by a no-buy season. And this has made me think about the numerous comments that I've received over the past couple of years suggesting that I read the work of Gretchen Rubin, which I still have not done because my stuff to read list is 10 miles long, and I'm working on other things right now. But from the comments, and forgive me because I didn't even look it up, I'm just going on what I've read in your comments. From your comments suggesting that I read Gretchen Rubin, I've discerned that she offers this idea that there are 2 kinds of people, moderators and abstainers. And maybe there are more kinds of people, but the 2 kinds that I think are most relevant to my projects are these 2 kinds. And these are the 2 kinds of people that you guys have been talking about to me with regards to her work in the comments. So I think that the idea is that you figure out which one you are, what's easier for you, moderating or abstaining. And then you use that knowledge about yourself to build your strategy for self-care and balance. And if this is the case, then I am clearly and without a doubt an abstainer. With my vices, which I think the main vices of my life have been sugar and shopping, With my vices, it is way easier for me to abstain completely, to just cut myself off completely for long periods of time, than it is for me to dole out little portions. Now, a large part of my project this year, if you've been following, you know this, revolves around trying to make myself a better moderator. So I'm like trying to push myself from one category into the other, or to like make myself more balanced between the two types. And I do think that I have gained tools of moderation that I didn't have before my no-buy year. So I do think it's possible, if you're like a bred in the bone abstainer, to get better at moderating. I don't think it's just like 100% all or nothing. I mean, and I'm saying that based on my own life experience. Like, I am a better moderator than I was before, but I'm clearly not amazing at it. I mean, like, look at what just happened over these past 2 months. So my experience with the first 2 months of this year has made me think, what if I'm just an abstainer for life? What if that's just my personality type? If that's true, then it might be better to work with that trait than against it. And I don't want to be like on a no-buy for life. I don't want to just abstain from everything forever. So what would an abstainer positive plan for spending on beautiful things look like? It would probably look similar to what I've sort of ended up doing de facto this year. It would probably look like a feast or famine type plan. I have seen some comments from some of you on past videos talking about like seasonal spending sprees or seasonal spending plans, and that idea is really starting to appeal to me. I could totally see myself in the future setting aside a certain amount of money to spend on like clothes and makeup and stuff per quarter, and then literally spending it all at once in the middle of each quarter, like all on one day, like going out and just spending it all on one day, and then being on a no-buy until the middle of the next quarter, and then going out and spending it all on one day in the middle of that quarter, or within a week or something like that. And that would mean that I would be on a no-buy almost all of the time, like almost every day of the year. And that would mean that I'm in my strongest position as an abstainer almost all the time. That might work better for me. It might give me more peace and more strength and lead to smarter purchases. And it's something to think about for next year. But that's not how this year is set up. And this year is set up to try to challenge me to become a better moderator. And I am going to soldier on with this year's project. And I will talk about my plan for soldiering on with this year's project at the end of this video. Okay, let's move on to like the juiciest meat, as far as I'm concerned. And this is the question, why? This is the question I've been asking myself. Why did I do this? And I've been asking myself this question every day for several days as I take notes for this video, and the answer is multifaceted. I feel like there are good aspects to the answer, or there are answers that I feel like are good things. There are true answers that I feel like are bad things. And then there are answers to this question that I feel like are just matters of logic. Like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense that this would have happened. And all of the answers I think are real and valid, and they all live together. So there's the good, the bad, and the logical, and I'm going to present them to you in that order. We're starting with the good. So the good reason why I did this is that I found so many amazing, beautiful things to spend my budget on during the second half of February. Just really, really lovely things that I'm so happy that I purchased. And part of the reason why I spent so much budget is that a lot of them cost a lot of money. But I'm also really happy with that because I like the idea of spending more money on fewer things. So in terms of the things that I ended up purchasing, in terms of the yield, to me, it's good. My clear directive of fewer, nicer things is guiding me to what I consider to be strong choices. And I'll go over this in more detail in my video about how I spent my budget. In that video, you will learn that I stumbled across 2 incredible designer sample sales in downtown LA. So spaces in downtown LA where designers were like renting the space in order to sell off old stock, stuff from past seasons, or samples from current seasons, selling them off at amazing discounts. And just the things that I found, I love them so much. They were really good choices. In those sales, and in a couple of other places this month, I found some items of such high quality and such impeccable fit, and at such amazing prices considering what they were, that I just could not ignore the reality that it was a good choice for me to spend some of my yearly budget on them. I felt at the time of those purchases, and I still feel, that it was a good choice, the right choice for me to buy them, even if it meant borrowing back from March, April, or May, or June. The cool thing is that I feel like I'm seeing the benefit of having a more fluid and a yearly budget, because I allowed myself the flexibility to make these choices at those times and to get these things that I really, really love. And I do think that that's a good thing. You know, it puts me in this position where I then can't buy anything later in the year. But at this point, I still feel glad that I made that trade. All right, the bad. There are some answers to the question, why did I do this, that are bad things. Basically, I'm in a state of total mental and emotional chaos. I've indicated it in some other videos, but it's just going on and on. I'm in a very strange and challenging season of my life. There's a lot of darkness that I'm battling inside of myself. I just have had a lot of days where I didn't feel good. And it was my birthday, my 35th birthday, which is kind of like a tough one, that half decade. It's like when you're in your early 30s, you're like, I'm in my early 30s and I'm living my best. And then you get in your late 30s and you're like, I'm in my late 30s. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I need to get the show on the road. Like, it's kind of a freaky outy birthday, I feel. And it kind of like has compounded a lot of the other things that I've been struggling with. And I'm not usually one to have like a bad reaction to my birthday, but this year it was a little bit weird. And these times come to us all. Like, it's just how it is. I'm just having one of those long moments still. And the reason I'm bringing it up again, because I know that I keep bringing this up in videos and I'm explaining to you why various things are going on, namely like me not posting as many videos. The reason I'm bringing it up here is that it's directly tied to my shopping behavior. It just is. During my no-buy year or my budget year, I would have walked right by those sample sales. I wouldn't even have gone into them. But I went into them because I was like, thank God, something to distract me from how much I'm freaking out inside. That was literally what went on. And I went in. And I was also like, oh, I can procrastinate. I don't have to sit with myself and try to solve my problems. I can just go into this sample sale. Like, that's what happened. That's bad. I'm not proud to report that to you. It is bad. And then the matter of the first thing happened was that I was in the sample sale and I found these amazing things and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I have budget left to spend in the year, because I'm so glad I'm getting to buy this incredible leather jacket for only $125. It's like amazing. But the premise of having gone into the sample sale to begin with was bad. Just like I did in January, in February, I gave in to the temptation to use shopping as a mechanism for self-soothing. Just like I did in January, I made good purchases in the moment because I am very clear-headed about what I actually want in my life. But I've determined that my muscles of resistance are currently strong enough to keep me from spending over my very set budget. I do still believe that, even though I haven't quite come up against it yet. I do believe that I'm not going to spend over my set budget for the year. I think I'm strong enough for that. But my muscles of resistance are not strong enough to keep me from turning to shopping when I'm troubled, turning to it as a distraction. I can see very clearly that that's where I'm at right now. I just haven't gotten to the point where I'm easily able to resist that when I'm in my darkest moment. I have to work on that. And let me tell you, like, given that I'm in my darkest moment-ish, I'm not very happy about that. Like, that sounds really hard, sounds garbagey. I do have some strategies in place. I'm going to talk about them at the end of this video because it's one of the things I'm doing going forward. But I can see, that's what I see. Like, I see that I'm strong enough to not break my rules, but I'm not strong enough to just behave better, to like have the willpower to just not even go there into the sample sale or whatever. It's like, as long as there's budget left to spend, I think this is what I'm realizing. As long as there's budget left to spend, it's really, really hard for me to not shop when I feel at my worst. because it's still such a good way of not facing my demons. When I get to the point where there's no budget left to spend, or if I've really taken myself in hand and been really firm with myself about what I want and kind of set soft rules, but firmer than they have been for these 2 months, then I think I will be strong enough to not do it. It's hard. This is hard, you guys. It's hard. This is, I still don't know. Like, this just happened. Like, all of this spending, buying a bunch of stuff in February, it like just happened. It was just like a week or two ago. So this is my best guess at why it happened. And I'm also really trying to be nice to myself. Like, this is my biggest challenge, like my overarching challenge. I mean, like dealing with spending and all of this stuff, but I have a really big challenge in my life, which is to not be really, really punishing and hard on myself and just want to like throw myself in the garbage when I do a thing like spend half my budget in 2 months. So I'm trying really hard. I was trying really hard when I made this list. And when I think about my behavior and try to process it, I'm trying really hard to look at myself in the way that I might look at a friend or one of you. Like if one of you came to me and you were like, Hannah, I had this yearly budget and I spent half of it in both January and February. Oh my gosh, like what do you think? Why do you think that happened? I would be so loving with you. I would be so kind to you. I would be like, girl, you only spent half of it. You still have half your yearly budget left to spend and the year is not over yet. You can figure out how you decide to spread that out over the rest of the year. You're still within your budget. You're learning stuff about yourself. Let's talk about maybe the good and the bad and the neutral reasons why this might have happened. Like that is how I would talk to you. So I'm really trying to like talk to myself like that instead of talking to myself the way that a mean commenter would talk to me, which is like what I'm inclined to do. Anyway, this is a bit of a tangent, but all I'm trying to say is like, these are just my best guesses. But I can very, very clearly see that there were some dark reasons why I did what I did in February. There is a part of what happened during February and January. I mean, let's be real. It's like the entire first 2 months of the year. It's all really lumped into one at this point. It's like just what happened so far in 2020. I have tools for understanding it that come from having gone through my no-buy year and then paid really close attention to what I learned from it. And knowing that, I actually went back this month and I watched the video that I filmed last August about how my no-buy year changed my life. I'll link it down below, obviously. That video very clearly lays out sort of the meta things that my no-buy year showed me and the ways in which I evolved. And I don't usually go back and watch my old videos, but I just needed a little bit of like encouragement. I needed like a little bit of strength. And I got it from that video because I was really able to interpret what I was saying in that video about why my behaviors had been what they were before my no-buy year, and how not shopping clarified that for me and allowed me to grow. I was really able to apply that to what I was going through in January and February. Before my no-buy year, I didn't really know why I shopped so much, other than that I love beautiful things. I'm so passionate about beautiful things. My love for them is so deep that I felt like I couldn't resist them because I love them so much. Like that was basically my thesis. That was my hypothesis about why I was such an overspender. Taking a break from shopping and then paying attention to how I reacted to that over the course of the whole year and in the ensuing year showed me that there had been something else that was going on the whole time. I learned that my constant search for new things had been a way of not living in my life and in my body, like escaping myself by fantasizing with a bid for a different future self. That's what my shopping habit had been. Constantly refreshing my life so that I didn't have to sit with myself. Was I doing that in January and February of 2020? Yes, that is what I was doing. I've been under a high level of existential stress, like stress about my very existence. And in order to avoid diving into that, which is going to be the only way to help unknot those knots that are inside of me right now about my existence, in order to avoid doing that work, I was going into the sample sale. I was like spending my time and my money fantasizing about a different version of myself, a version with new things. But I have to pretty much stop that now. And I was able to catch myself in the act after only 2 months. I feel like I'm going to be committed to changing my behavior much more now than I was at the end of January, because I feel like I've really seen now, since I sort of tried at the end of January, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to like kind of be on a no-buy. And then what happened in February, I was like, oh girl, like we have a problem. Like we really have a problem. I feel like now I'm really like able to admit that I need to do some stuff. So that's good. Like I'm able to use what I learned about myself during my no-buy year to see why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then the other thing that was good about going back and watching that video is that I was reminded that before my no-buy year, the existential crisis was much deeper. I really felt like it was a bottomless pit. Like it didn't just feel like knots inside myself. It felt like a cavern that I was afraid to look into. And in spite of having had it such a tough January and February, I've never gone back to feeling the way I felt before my no-buy year, which was that I like wasn't sure that my life was what it should be. I have felt this whole time that I'm happy like with my partner and where I am and what I'm doing, and just like underneath it all, that general contentment is still there. I've struggled to really be in touch with it and to feel it every day the way that I wish I could, and the way that I really have been mostly since my no-buy year. But I have at least had that to stand on as I've been panicking about everything. Whereas before my no-buy year, I just didn't have anything to stand on. I had to develop that appreciation for and contentment with like myself and my life. And when I was watching myself talk about it in that video from last August, I was like, have I lost that? Is that why I've been behaving this way, buying all this stuff? And then I was like, no, I haven't lost that. That most hard-won prize from my no-buy year, I haven't lost it. I've just maybe lost touch with it a little bit because I've been freaking out. That was like good news to me. That was good news to realize that I could like backslide a little bit behaviorally, but without feeling like I've fundamentally reverted to my past self. Okay, I feel like I did get a little bit off track with that second one, but that was all the bad. That stuff was all included in the bad. Like, even though I was just talking about the good thing of like not having completely gone back to how I was before, that was all of me trying to like delve into all of the kind of sticky, icky, and shameful reasons why I behaved the way I did in January and February. And then I have this little note to talk about some like neutral and logical reasons why it might have gone down the way that it did in January and February. And I think I did touch base on this in my January check-in. And it just has to do with the fact that when I look back over the past 2 years of my life, I was on a no-buy for a whole year, and then I was on this really strict budget for a whole year. And during that budget year, I was inclined to save up my budget and then buy like phenomenally beautiful, impractical things. And so there are a lot of things in my everyday life that could really use like an upgrade, an update. They don't necessarily desperately need one, like they're falling apart at the seams, but I don't think that my impulse to refresh them is bad, because I feel like it's one thing to constantly try to refresh your life and only want new things and be always on the search for the next best thing, because you don't want to examine yourself. Like you don't want to look at yourself. And so everything that you own isn't good enough, and you just are like buying and buying and buying, trying to buy your way out of your life. But there's another kind of updating your stuff, which is just that it can really add value. And I think that most people who don't have spending issues and who are good moderators and who just like are going along not dealing with the issues that I've been dealing with, like update or refresh or upgrade things once in a while. And so there's sort of like this steady and reasonable refresh of things, like a slightly nicer or maybe a way nicer version of a little thing that you use all the time, even if that thing hasn't become completely worn out to the point where you can't use it anymore. What I'm trying to say is that second thing, which I think is fine, I haven't done it for 2 years. And now with my whole yearly budget at my disposal, it's been really hard to resist just refreshing a whole bunch of stuff that I feel like is due for an upgrade. And I think that just has to do with the fact that I've been on this 2-year bout of strictness about what I buy. A lot of my stuff wasn't even that nice or wasn't right for me before my no-buy. And over the past 2 years, it's just been getting less and less nice, more and more worn out, and less right for me. But a lot of that stuff isn't the kind of thing that I'm like really gunning to spend my budget on. And so naturally, this is what I'm trying to say, naturally, as soon as like my foot came off the gas a little bit in terms of restriction, there was a lot of refreshing and replacing that went on. And I think that that makes sense. And the logic of it is helping me to like be kinder to myself about the fact that that's happening. It makes me think about the fact that perhaps a very, very protracted period of intense abstention might be something you want to consider carefully, in that it could trigger a period of rapid and large scale like replacing and refreshing at its end. I think there's a little bit of that is what's going on with me. And I don't really have like a it's good or it's bad. Again, I think it's like kind of neutral and just logical. It's just something to think about. Okay, the last note that I have before I move into talking about what I'm going to do is about luxury. I've been having some thoughts, some questions about luxury and the place of luxury goods, relatively luxury goods. I'm not talking about like a Gucci bag over here, but just like things that are slightly expensive for their type. I've been just thinking a lot about luxury things because some of the things that I have purchased with my budget so far this year have been things that I would consider to be very luxurious, and it's raised some questions for me. But I think I'm going to put this segment in my video about what I bought. I think it will fit better there, and I feel like this video is getting really long and I'm getting kind of worn out. So I will muse about luxury and what the things that I bought this month have caused me to think about the idea of luxury. I'll muse about all of that in the upcoming video about how I spent my budget. So let me tell you about what I'm going to do. What is my strategy going to be for the rest of the year, given that it's only March and I've already spent half my yearly budget? What I'm not going to do is to go on a very strict, no holds barred, true no buy. It's tempting because it would be so easy to just go on like a pure no buy until June and then get back onto like the budget and try again with spending the rest of my budget in a more reasonable way over the second half of the year. But I know that I'm really good at being on a no buy, and I still haven't let go of the idea of giving myself just like a little bit of an opportunity to build those moderation muscles. But I don't want to spend really very much, if any, more of my budget before June. I really don't. I really would like to have the second half of the year be a little bit of like a reset and a do-over. So the way that I'm reconciling those two things is that I am going to put myself on a no buy for expensive things. So the fewer, nicer things that I've been buying, like a very expensive tracksuit. Spoiler alert, that's one of the things that I bought. Silk pajamas. You know what I'm saying? Like these kinds of things where I'm buying one thing that's like over $100. And I feel good about that because the thing is so nice and it's of such high quality. And I know that I would rather spend $100 of my budget on one thing than spend $100 on 10 things. So I've been like really gunning for those decisions. I'm not going to do that until June or July. So I am kind of putting myself on a no buy for big ticket items, which to me, it's like $100, $150. Like that's a big ticket item for me. That's a significant chunk of my budget, like 5%, 10%. I'm not going to make any more purchases that fall into that category until halfway through the year. I'm going to say June, almost halfway through the year, when I've pretty much caught up with myself in terms of spending. But I'm not going to tell myself that I'm not allowed to buy any clothes or makeup. I'm not. I am going to let myself, if I see something that I really love and it's not expensive. So I'm especially thinking like if I'm at a thrift store, you know what I mean? If I'm at like a consignment store and I find like the dream pair of shoes and they're like $20, and I determine that it would be worth it to spend $20 of my budget, I'll let myself do that. But if I do that, I'll be stealing from future Hannah in terms of her ability to invest in fewer, nicer things and big ticket items. So I'm going to have to weigh my desire for the less expensive things that I might find between now and June or July and that I might want to buy. I'm going to have to weigh my desire for those things against my desire to really protect as much of my yearly budget as possible and keep it in the second half of the year instead of borrowing back. But those will be the moments in which I allow myself to maybe like grow a little bit of those muscles of moderation and flex them a little bit. Not to mention the fact that I'm still striving for fewer things. I haven't talked about that at all in this video. Again, I will talk more about that in the video about how I spent my budget. I don't feel like the fewer or the year of less stuff directive went out the window this month, because all things considered, it wasn't that many individual things. Because it's fewer nicer things. I'm spending lots of money on each individual thing. And that was why I spent so much of my budget. And also I've continued to get rid of things. I've been like decluttering a lot of clothes. There are a lot of things I'm going to, I think, do another makeup declutter. Like I'm really settling into this desire to really like whittle and whittle and whittle down what I have, even though I've added some really nice and expensive pieces to mostly my wardrobe. But I'll talk more about that in the next video. The point of bringing it up now is just to say that that will also come to bear between now and June, when I'm trying to decide if I do or don't want to buy nice things that I want but that don't cost as much and that won't eat up as much of my budget, which is the only type of thing basically that I'm allowing myself to buy. Anything that I buy between now and the middle of the year will have to be less expensive. It'll have to be like a super good deal. So that's my plan in terms of still trying to give myself a little bit of room to develop better muscles of moderation. But there's a second aspect to my plan, because I don't just want to address the financial issue and the issue of like moderating and abstention. I also want to address the issue of like the desire to escape or to reject the life that I have. Looking back over these past 2 months and knowing that this spending has come from a place of resisting the challenge of investing in the life I already have, I'm going to push back by investing in the life I already have, indulging in the life I already have. And I'm going to do that by actively trying to feel my oats with the belongings that I have. So it's going to be like a mega pan existence shop my stash. I'm really going to put my pedal to the metal when it comes to like wearing my stuff. So I think I'm going to try to do the most with my outfits going forward. After the day that I publish this video, I'm gonna, for the rest of March, let's do that. For the rest of March, I'm going to sign myself up for doing the most with my outfits. And I'll do the outfit of the day on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, please do. And make sure that you watch my stories. I don't post those like long protracted stories with a bunch of little segments. I only ever post 1 or 2 stories a day, 2 or 3 maybe. And usually it's just one. It's my outfit of the day, which I take in the mirror in the lobby of my building when I'm leaving the house. And then I usually post it like a little bit later in the day. I take it in the morning, and then I sometimes don't remember to post it until later in the day. But at some point during the day, it goes up. And for the rest of March, after this video goes up, I am going to promise to you that those outfit of the day pictures will be all out. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to not dress down just because I'm only walking to work and sewing. I'm going to dress up for the world, for you, in my best gigs. I'm really going to pull out all the stops and try to be like I'm walking the runway every day in my outfit of the day. And I'm also going to do it with makeup. I'm also going to try, I'm not going to do like, well, maybe I'll do a classic shop my stash. I still need to pick up that series. But mostly every day when I sit down at my vanity, instead of just putting on a quick look to go out and about, I'm going to try to do something that is a bit much. I'm just going to try to be a bit much, to do the most. I'm going to try to really get into my stuff and love my stuff and use my stuff. And that is going to be my response to my realization here at the end of February, beginning of March, my realization that I have been not giving my life enough credit. And I've not been giving the stuff that I own enough credit these past 2 months. I've let my fears and my anxieties about things I'm trying to achieve and whether they will or won't go as planned, I've let those anxieties cause me to be blind to how beautiful my life already is. And I care so much more about getting back that appreciation for what I own than I do about money. Like, yeah, I don't want to overspend, blah, blah, blah. But this is what really matters. What really matters to me is waking up every morning, looking at Joe, looking at Sadie, looking at my clothes, at my apartment, and loving the life that I have. And I've lost touch with that a little bit. Like that, a lot of my shopping behaviors have come from feeling like the darkness of my existential angst is so dark that it's like swallowed up the lightness of this life. And so my way of pushing back against that is going to be basically by dressing up. And that is it. I hope that I've done this topic justice. This was a hard check-in to film. There were a lot of sirens. At one point I got really sweaty. I feel like my hair has been all over the place. And as always, I'm a little bit anxious about like how this will go over and whether I've included all the information I need to include. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching this check-in. I hope that it was in some way fruitful for you. And I really hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself right now so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.